Hey everybody, JP, aka Warp Jester, back again with another topic, soapbox, rant, whatever you want to call it. Today I actually want to talk, well, got so much to talk about. I think today I'll focus on the Google and Motorola merger while it's still somewhat fresh. It's only about 5 days old. Again, for people who didn't see the news, aren't really hip and up to date on what's going on in the mobile world, Google went and bought Motorola's mobile division. This is the company that takes care of the cell phones you see, as well as also set-top boxes. Um, for reasons that some people have speculation about, Google went out and bought them. Primarily, the reason is patents. I talked about patents previously. Google needed patents to help protect the Android. Long story there. Look at my last video post. You can see all about it. That is one valid reason. And the thing about it, though, is that people tend to be a little narrow-minded. They find a logical answer to something, and that's the end of it. I have an answer. That's the only answer. That's the only answer that's needed. Problem solved. That's not always the case. When it comes to the aspect of Google buying Motorola, the answer may be patents to a certain extent. I tend to look at it this way. Google buying Motorola may have been motivated to, in short order, and at a very high premium, by Motorola. As a matter of fact, Motorola was bought for $63 above share value. That means for whatever the share is worth, share of Motorola is worth, Google paid an additional $63 above that. That's a pretty damn good premium. The total bill, I believe, is $12.8 billion. That's a B, billion. Google has deep pockets, but they're going to feel that one. I mean, this is a lot of money we're talking about. And they're so confident that this deal will go through, that the government won't have an issue with it, like antitrust or whatever, that they've actually put up a $2 some billion basically cancellation fee, if you will. So if for any reason the deal doesn't go through, then Motorola gets 2 point some odd billion dollars from Google for just asking. It's awfully nice of them. So, what other reasons are there? Why would Google go out and buy Motorola, putting the patents aside? The patents may have been a motivating factor to, again, purchase them this quickly, as well as part of obviously the reason they wanted to get a hold of them, on even the price they paid for them. But what other reasons are there? I mean, is there some other value to Motorola? Yeah, I think so. Now, there's a lot of speculation going on what's going to happen from here. Is Google going to fold Motorola into the fold? Are they going to become more Google employees? Is Google going to run their own personal cell phone division? I would like to think so. Again, they needed the patents to protect the Android software, the operating system, but they've been licensing the Android software to anybody who wanted it for free. HTC, Samsung, Motorola, LG, and so on. They don't do hardware. Google doesn't do hardware in general normally. There's a few odd exceptions, like the Google TV, for example. Which brings me up to a good point here. Motorola also makes desktop boxes. I just told that in the beginning. You may not realize it, because they're not necessarily branded real notably, but if you have like Comcast, I think possibly Dish or one of those other services, go look at that box. Because chances are that receiver they send you when you get your cable service or Dish service is a good chance it's actually made by Motorola. They're one of the predominant company that builds the set-top boxes. So that's another good reason, because Google hasn't had a lot of success in their Google TV. Some people blame innovation, some people blame clunky systems. It was a 1.0 release. It was our first attempt at this. Now, why would Google care? Well, why did Google put out Google TV in the first place? Google is a search company. I'm not going to talk about their ethos and model and go and start ripping that part. Their whole concept is search and information aggregation. If they can take all the information in the world and gather it together and serve it to you, they can serve it to you with a side of ads. And that's where they make their money. Aside from the computer and the mobile phone, the TV is another input point that feeds us. We watch TV on it, we see commercials. Okay? So now Google has another avenue they can start drilling down through to help serve up ad content, again, to make more money. Getting a hold of a company that creates those set-top boxes could give them leverage or a foothold they need to start pushing maybe a Generation 2 version of Google TV or some kind of integration in that regard. So there's a possibility there. The other aspect, a little more obvious, is the fact that with Google having a cell phone division, they can actually create their own cell phones, they can clean up a few flaws or shortcomings of Android. Most notably is the complete non-standardization of anything related to Android. We have companies like BlackBerry or more notably Apple. They control both the software and the hardware. People don't think about it very much, but when you look at the iPhone, we all know Apple makes that piece of hardware, the physical device you hold in your hand. Apple also writes the code, writes the software for it. This is how Apple, across all of their products, can have such a clean, defined system for their mobile phones, their Apple TV, everything, because they control both sides of it. Google hasn't had that luxury. They kind of went, okay, you know what? This is how we want our operating system to work, but we're keeping it open so you guys can do whatever you want to it. Okay, great. You get some great innovation. HTC put a skin or a layer over the top of Android. They call it the HTC Touch Sense UI. It's basically your interface, what you see when you first look at your HTC phone. I personally like it. My phone is an HTC Evo 3D, and it looks good. However, there are lesser interfaces. Samsung's interface is not as desirable. It's a little more clunky. It doesn't look really nice. And the stock Android interface is actually not that bad. So they're kind of skinning it over with something that's kind of meh. I think they call it the Moto Blur interface for Motorola. I haven't personally experienced it, but the general consensus has been somewhere between caca and absolute shit. People aren't real big on it. Now Motorola is owned by Google. Google has an opportunity to do a couple of things. One, they can set a standard. They call their vanilla phone. Usually it's the Nexus series. They're basically saying, here's the hardware standard we want to go by. It's going to be this format, this processor, etc. And here's the phone we're going to come out with first to get that platform to go with. So you get an idea of what Android can do. Yeah, people can still do the variations, but at least there's that one stable, reliable phone that Google can stand behind and endorse and say they like it. Now they have control over that. They can actually make it just the way they want it. So that's kind of a plus. The other aspect of it too is they can start being a little more rigid and say, listen, we're going to create, instead of having just an absolute open free-for-all, we're going to set some certain standards or guidelines for different categories. And people are going to be able to form into this. And they can actually create the hardware for these different categories, again, as a reference design, and to ensure that things are going to work the way they should work. So there's a lot of pluses out there. So basically, what it all boils down to is if somebody gets into some water cooler talk about Motorola being bought by Google, sound intelligent. Instead of just kind of doing the they want it for the patents or being ignorant of it, now you know a little more about it. And again, be open-minded. Don't forget that oftentimes there can be more than one right answer or more than one possibility out there. Patents, hardware control for mobile devices, and even a possible reboot on their set-top option. So that's my 2 bits. As always, please, by all means, send me some feedback if you like. For people who are watching this through YouTube, comments, go ahead and leave some comments. If you're seeing this through Google Plus, again, send me some comments. I always like seeing a little feedback. You can also send me an email. Email is warpjester@yahoo.com. I always appreciate some feedback just because it gives me a chance to respond, get some input. Emails, honestly, are great. If you want to send a video reply, please send me a link to the video reply. I always have to listen. And again, I will not ignore anything. Any information I get, any input, feedback, good or bad, I will read it, and if it makes sense, if it's worth talking about, I certainly will bring it up and give you credit and respond to it. So I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great night. Bye.